Welcome to Creative Mornings. It's a pleasure for us having you here at the Philip and Patricia Frost Museum of Science inside the Frost Planetarium. So we're going to be talking about commitment today. And the first thing that comes to mind when I think about commitment is that I actually, a long time ago, committed with my league that we would do Creative Mornings here. And this is actually kind of like the third time we tried. But you know, that proves that we were committed, that we're committed people, Alexandra and I, and we made it happen in the end. So committed like pays off.
Good morning, guys. I'm Alex, and I think Jorge's kind of playing himself down a little bit. I think he's an expert in commitment. I've known him for about 5 years, and he's been unwaveringly committed to that beard and growing it. It's been phenomenal. I've never seen the level of commitment to something.
Thank you, Alexandra, for your kind morning words. So commitment, right? You think about commitment, and usually you think of something that is dual. For whatever reason, commitment has like that yin-yang capability. You think of commitment as something that is great. Sorry. Something that is great, but you also think of commitment as something that pressures you. I try to think about the good side of commitment, right? The state or quality of being dedicated to a cause, activity, etc. One that you take pride on, one that you're like, I'm so committed to these, and I get these successes and these results out of them. For example, the museum's commitment to quality in science.
So it's a funny thing, and we've sort of unpacked this a little bit through the last month and thinking about this topic, and like Jorge said, there's this intrinsic sort of polarity to the definition itself, right? On one side, you have this sort of noble state of being empowered and tackling something and being fulfilled by that action and state. And then on the other hand, you have this sort of stifling, heavy state of being restricted. And what is that about exactly? I feel like that duality is actually what makes the word and the idea most interesting. And that's what we're going to sort of talk through today, this morning.
So let's go down to the stage.
We thought because of the dual nature of the definition, also because we don't really like to talk about ourselves,
and we are two people.
We're two people.
We wanted to be creative about the presentation format. Welcome everybody to Inside the Dome. I'm going to be interviewing this morning Alexandra Kuechenberg. Alexandra, it's a pleasure for us to have you at Inside the Dome.
Thank you, Jorge. I'm very honored to be here.
So let me start by the beginning. Who is Alexandra Kuechenberg?
Thank you for asking me, Jorge. That's a great question. I'd say on paper, hi guys, I'm Alex Kuechenberg. I'm the creative director here at Frost Science. I've been with the museum for about 5 years. I came on about 4 years before opening, and came on with Jorge to build and develop the content here at the museum for the new museum, which was incredible. I am actually a Miami native, which is pretty unique. Well, I didn't grow up here. I was born here. My background is in fine art and then in creative technology, so kind of a strange multidisciplinary background. I went to undergrad for sculpture, new media, and visual art, and then I went to graduate school for creative technology and interactive technology. I'd say my biggest creative influence would be my mentor, who I had the gift of working for about 5 years, James Terrell, who really inspired me to get into science, actually, neuroscience, and what's behind his perceptual artworks.
So, you know, now that we know you a little bit better, let's focus on the subject, on the topic of the day. What does commitment mean to you, and how did you get to understand what commitment was going to mean to you?
Funny you should ask. I think I only better understand the word commitment in the last 2 weeks or so, having thought about it a little bit and talking about it with you. But it's funny because I think I could safely say that the majority of my life, certainly my young life, I definitely had an aversion to the word commitment. I saw it as sort of the antithesis of freedom. I felt like commitment held you back from doing what you felt like doing. And if I think about it, as I have for the past 2 weeks, I really actually had this weird dual influence. I had my dad, who was super committed, super disciplined, professional athlete here in Miami.
Go Dolphins.
Go Dolphins. Just sort of the epitome of committed. And then I had my mom, who was a creative artist, sort of free spirit and fly by the seat of her pants type. And I actually grew up with my mom, so maybe that's why I had such an aversion to commitment. But I do remember the first point where I made a real life commitment, and that was after being a super rebellious kid and teenager, never thinking I was going to go to college. The one constant was my creative practice, so from an early age I always made art. At about 18, I decided to go to school, which was a shock to everyone. I applied to art school, went away to Vermont from Los Angeles, and went through the 4 years honing my practice. And I think it was the first time in life I realized that there is a good version of commitment. You know, there's the commitment that's really rooted in your passion, and that comes and stems from acknowledging your passion and truly knowing what your passion is. So from that point on, I think I could say I was a little bit more open to the idea of commitment. I then went on to, commit to multiple other professional and creative endeavors, all of which I might not have known at the time, but in retrospect were hugely fulfilling and empowering periods of my life, from grad school to the work with Terrell to this last 5-year commitment at the museum.
So you just mentioned that you kind of come to terms to commitment in the last 2 weeks when you were thinking about it. So what advice do you give the Alexander that is going to walk out the dome today?
Well, thank you, Creative Mornings, for cultivating this revelation, actually, because I think it's a great reminder for myself. The most important thing about commitment to me at this point is really making space and time to check in with yourself periodically to ensure that my passion is in alignment with my commitments. I think that's the most important thing, because there is that dual side of commitment, which is this sort of encroaching pressure that stifles. And I believe that that comes from your commitment, which is a modality, being out of alignment with your true nature and your passion. So for me, I think I want to keep very cognizant of making space to check in with myself.
That's a good practice. Well, thank you very much, Alexander, for being with us today at Inside the Dome. And, let's next.
Good morning, Dr. Jorge. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good morning, Alexander. Thank you very much for having me, and thank you, this wonderful audience, for being with us today.
As you might have heard, this morning's theme is around commitment.
Wonderful work.
As it relates to you and culture and creativity, and I'm sure the audience and I also want to know, what drives Jorge?
So that's actually a very interesting question, because, the story that I usually say is a very young version of myself, probably a little older than in the water, already aware of its surroundings, fell in love with the night sky. I grew up in Barcelona, same light pollution that here in Miami, so I enjoyed the night sky actually in the mountains in the northwest of Spain. And I fell in love with it. I fell in love with the night sky, I fell in love with the stars, and I fell in love with all the questions that I was having, that I wanted to know. I was one of those kids that I was asking my dad about everything all the time. They still love me, so that's good. But now in retrospect, I realized that that was not my passion. While I was falling in love with astronomy, while I was falling in love with the stars, that was actually a commitment. I found my passion later on life, and I can now understand it well, but I found my passion later in life. And it was through a cousin of mine that he gave me, because I was into science, he gave me a bunch of VHSs of the original Cosmos by Carl Sagan. Yeah, I'm that old, I used to watch VHSs. I mean, maybe some people here, they don't even know what a VHS is. Matthias doesn't know what a VHS is, probably. So I watched the original Cosmos on VHS, and I found my passion, and my passion was doing what Carl Sagan was doing. Of course, not the same way. I don't have if you guys have noticed, I have an accent, so I don't have his favorite uncle voice. I have an accent, and I decided that that was not going to be my way, but I decided that my passion, or I found out that my passion was in finding ways to translate complex scientific ideas into instances that people can enjoy, into instances that I can use to inspire people so they get an entry point to science. And that was my passion. And then I understood that astronomy and astrophysics was a commitment that would lead me to that passion.
Interesting. So I know personally, and the audience probably knows, you have a fairly diverse background. Could you explain a little bit about how commitment took you through the trajectory of your background?
That's actually a great question. It's like we didn't try this yesterday. So, it's actually a really good question because I did what I was supposed to do. Like, I fell in love with the stars. I decided I wanted to study astronomy and astrophysics. So I did all the schooling. I went to college. I went to graduate school. I got my master's and I got my PhD. And I got my job as a researcher at a really nice university. I was doing what I was supposed to do within that commitment. But at some point, I realized that that was no longer fulfilling my passion. While I love science, I really find more joy on creating those instances to translate the complex ideas rather than being in the lab fighting with the complex ideas themselves. So at some point, while I was like in this really nice job, really being a researcher at a university, it's great because it's like you're a grad student, just like with a very nice salary. So it's like you have like the same flexibility, you can like go for swims in the middle of the day, you can say yes to everything, you can commit to everything. But anyway, I realized that that was no longer fulfilling my passion. I was doing a lot of the complex ideas and very little about like translating them. So I decided that I was going to break that commitment and I was going to go back to school. And I was going to go actually to art school to get an MFA, a Master in Fine Arts. Because I wanted to explore how the arts, the sculpture, performance, like design, could help me with that passion of like bringing those ideas to a larger audience. So that's what I did. I broke my commitment with a natural, expected scientific career and went back to school to get a degree in fine arts.
So that's super interesting to me. I think the part I want to hear a little bit more about is the moment when you recognized that your commitment was no longer serving your passion and what that felt like. Like, what was that?
So it's actually hard because the word commitment, as we were talking about before, has a lot of baggage. You're realizing that you're going to break a commitment that is not only your commitment, but it's also what people expect from you because all the decisions that you've been making. So a lot of people back then did not understand that I wanted to give up like a career in scientific academy to go back to school to get a Master in Fine Arts. They do now, because they see me, how happy I am, like how playful I am with my work, and they realize that that was the right choice. But back then, a lot of close friends that are great scientists and that they really were in sync in that path of being like hardcore scientists, they didn't understand that I was doing that. Even my mom didn't understand, because like, okay, you've been doing all by the book, why are you doing this now? Plus, like, that job that I got was actually in Madrid, and my parents live in Barcelona, so it was really close to home. So for her, like, for me to leave again was like kind of crazy. But now they all understand what I did, and they understand like this narrative that I've shared with you guys of like how I think people need to follow their passions, and even if that means sometimes breaking some commitments, because like sometimes you grow, you modulate, like, and the commitment that you thought was gonna take you to success, it no longer aligns with who you are, with who you've become. And like it was hard at the time, but it's good now, and I'm proud I did it, and I'm really happy that I did it.
Thanks, Jorge, for sharing a bit of your history and your path. But of course, our own personal histories are not all there is to the story, right? There's also the aspect of aligning passions with a job, or with an institution, or with a client, or the practical aspects of passion and commitment. And I think we're both gonna give you a couple examples of where that plays.
So that's the third section of the presentation today. So we're at a planetarium, so let's do just a little bit of planetarium stuff. But I want to start off by sharing one of my favorite quotes by JFK. He said that we choose to go to the moon because it's hard, and we're going to do it. And by saying this, what he was doing was committing resources, committing the time of people of NASA. Like just highlighting that commitment is always serving an agenda. And the agenda, his passion in this way, or the passion of like, that a lot of us share, is like that of a space exploration. Sure, the Cold War, but I'm not going to get into that. The passion there is like space exploration, because it's something really easy for everyone to empathize with. Because we've all wondered what's out there, and we've all wondered what's next, where are we going to go. Like, we made it to the moon, which is right there, and right now we're in a period in which we're doing a similar thing. We are committing, both with private and public efforts, to actually make it to Mars. And again, this is a commitment. At the moment we commit, we're going to work really hard to make it happen. But this is part of a larger agenda, that of space exploration. We made it to the moon, we'll make it to Mars. By going there, we're going to learn a lot about Mars, but also a lot about ourselves, about like the solar system, about the planets. And this is going to be a seed for future goals in space exploration, a seed for like what's next. Are we ever going to go outside of the solar system? Is that going to be possible? What kind of technologies we need to develop? So those are going to be little commitments within this agenda of space exploration that is going to enrich our lives and satisfy our curiosity. But let's just go back to Earth and share how it's more or less the same that happens at a science museum, right? We commit to things that serve a larger agenda, and as creatives, we need to find that balance. One of my favorite examples and one of my favorite exhibitions at the museum is Feathers to the Stars. The beginning of this exhibition is actually our former VP of exhibits, Son Duran, who unfortunately passed away 2 years ago. He committed to bring into the same gallery like kids' favorite things at science museums. And we knew what those things were because we asked them. Keep that slide, please. We asked kids during summer camp what their favorite things at science museums were. And usually we would get the same answers. We would get dinosaurs, aircraft, and space. So in a way it was easy for us. All we need to do is to get a T-Rex and a jet fighter and send it to the stars. Yeah, we're done. Unfortunately, we're a science museum. We cannot simply collage things in. So we need to tell a story. The mission of the museum is that of telling stories that inspire people. Stories about science that inspire people, that engage people and make people act upon those. And that's what this exhibition is. And it was easy. In this case, it was easy. The initial commitment translated into an easy challenge because all we needed to do was to tell the story of flight. If you think about it, the past, present, and future of flight is how flight evolved from dinosaurs into birds, how birds actually inspire us humans to fly, how aviation took off, and then eventually, once we mastered the skies here on Earth, we actually wanted more, we reached for the stars, and we kick-started space exploration. So this is actually a great exhibition in my opinion, and you can check it out like after the event. You guys all have a black wristband that allows you to navigate the museum today all day. So this is actually on the 3rd floor of the North Building. And now I'm going to let Alexandra share another example.
So the museum has a mission, and that mission takes multiple commitments to fulfill, not all as noble or exciting as the development of an exhibit around space travel, like Jorge was just describing, but we also have a commitment and a mission to reach as wide an audience as possible. We don't just want to develop content and exhibits for school children, or for young adults, or for adults, or for, you know, a specific age range. We really need to target the whole community, which means a diverse audience. To do that, one commitment that both Jorge and I were very passionate about was the exhibition scene that was here with the museum when we opened about a year ago. We brought this exhibit from Trinity College in Dublin, and they have a really cool model, and it's to develop and curate art exhibits around hard science topics. And a bunch of academics there and researchers and scientists work together to curate 16 to 25 different artists to speak around the subject. And this one specifically was around the theme of seeing. And the exhibit took you through what seeing is, how brains see, how human eyes see, and also how machines and robots see. So it was a super cool exhibit, all about perception, right up my alley. But the huge potential about this one for us was the ability to create informal science social engagements. So every month the exhibit was here, We chose a theme from the exhibit. We invited the community to come in and explore the exhibition after hours. We invited musicians to come in, different creatives from the community to activate, to bring in a local vibe. And I think we brought through about 5,000 people over 4 months. It was super awesome, super successful, and really a great example of the museum's commitment to art and science to access a wide audience.
So we made it to 20 minutes, which was our commitment.
Amazing.
And it's amazing.